How's it going? My name's Bradley with Allaqcess Sports, and we are officially back. The NFL season, well, it's almost here, but we are back with our sleepers, studs, and stacks, and we're going to get into it for week one. I know it's early. It's probably too early, but it's never too early to do your research. If you're brand new here, welcome into the channel. If you're returning, man, it's good to see you. It's our sleeper studs and stacks. We're going to talk about guys under $5,500 at all the position levels that you can get into your lineup, and they're going to pay off. Those studs, the high-priced guys that are actually going to be worth their value and pay off. And then the stacks, your quarterback, wide receiver, or tight end combinations that you can put into your lineup to set yourself with a good foundation for the rest of your lineup. We'll be posting videos like this all throughout the NFL season, so hit subscribe if you haven't already. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoy it at any moment in time, and let me know in the comments where I went wrong. I know there's a million things that you could be doing, so you don't have much time. Let's get into the actual video. So, of course, we have to start with our sleepers, and we're going to work our way down the line: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and then into the tight ends. At the quarterback position, well, you got a lot of guys above $5,500. It's kind of a limited amount of players down here. So where are we going to start? Las Vegas Raiders are playing against the LA Chargers, which have one of the worst defensive back situations last year in terms of yardage giving up and points allowed to the wide receiver. So, yes, there's not a lot of rushing upside. You're not going to find that down in the 5,500s, but depending on who's going to start, Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, we don't know, but them paired up with Davante Adams, a relatively cheap stack, right? Davante's expensive, but these two guys going against the LA Chargers, I like their position. I know he probably isn't going to be a starter unless something drastic happens, but Justin Fields, who is a severe running threat going up against the Atlanta Falcons, who struggle against pass-catching backs and mobile quarterbacks, we don't know if he's going to be the starter. Again, that's Russell Wilson as of right now, but keep an eye on it. I mean, he is the starter, he's probably going to be massively owned. And then my favorite play under $5,500 at the quarterback position would be Geno Smith against the Denver Broncos. Yes, he kind of had a little bit of a step back last year, but now you bring in a new offensive coordinator, new coaching staff, really, from the University of Washington, who plays the spread offense, right? Wide receiver 3. We'll get into Jackson Smith and Jigba in just a second. But this offense could be doing a lot of throwing. I know mobile quarterbacks are king, but at $5,500, if you're looking to get 3, maybe 4 times your value at 20 points, Geno Smith is certainly capable of doing that and doing it with ease. So if you want to save money, I don't know if you necessarily have to because wide receivers are really cheap week 1. Geno Smith is there. Running backs under $5,500. We're going to go in order, but then my fourth guy is the guy that I actually like the best. Starting things off, Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard is the guy for the Carolina Panthers. Now, I know the New Orleans Saints defense is pretty good, but if you want to alleviate some of that pressure early on, hand the ball off to Chuba Hubbard. Get him involved in the pass-catching game. He's been working in the offseason on that. You look at what Rashad White did for Coach Dave Canales last year in Tampa Bay, you're probably going to get similar volume from Chuba Hubbard. Not saying he's as good of a rusher, but at $5,300, that's a really good value against the Saints. Even better value because of what the videos that we've been seeing coming out of camp. Chase Brown at $5,000. Zach Moss came in as running back 1, but slowly Chase Brown has been passing him, and he's probably going to be the starter week 1. We saw what Joe Mixon, who is a very good running back, we saw what Joe Mixon could do in this offense last year. Now you put in Chase Brown, if he is running back 1, against a bad New England Patriots team. I think the Bengals are winning this game handily. No need to risk Burrow re-injury or injury to one of your wide receivers on the outside. Turn around, hand the ball off to Chase Brown. I expect him to get a lot of volume, and at $5,000, if all we need for 3x is 15 points, 1 touchdown, 50 yards, we're there. And another interesting situation, I've mentioned this game already, the LA Chargers. J.K. Dobbins, it looks like he might be running back number 1 in a running back committee type role. Is it going to be Gus? Is it going to be J.K.? Is it going to be Vidal, the rookie out of Troy? We're not really sure, but J.K. Dobbins looks to have an early lead based on the reports that I've been reading. Now, this could obviously change leading up to week 1. There's plenty of preseason games to go, but it's something worth noting, and at $4,900, that saves you a huge chunk of change for a team that is going to be a run-first team. Now, my favorite play under $5,500 is actually going to be Javonte Williams of the Denver Broncos. He had pretty good volume last year when you look at it game by game. Double-digit handoff attempts. He's also getting targeted out of the backfield. I know you have kind of an interesting quarterback situation. We don't know who's going to be starting week 1, but Javonte Williams is going to get involved. Sean Payton used him last year coming off that injury. Why not use him again when he's actually fresh? You see at the end of last season, he had a couple of double-digit games. He had even more after week 10. Again, at $5,500, it's not a massive pill to swallow, especially if you're getting 18 points. That's 3x value. That's what you want to see. Again, if you have $50,000 from Draftkings and you're able to put up 150 points, 50, 100, 150, you get it 3x. If you're able to put up 150 points, you're scoring most weeks. Week 1, week 2 is kind of different because pricing's all over the place. It's usually about 175, 180 to cash. But most weeks, 3x is what you want, and this is what you're going to get out of Javonte Williams. 2 honorable mentions, and I only put them as honorable mentions right now because of Brian Robinson Jr. going up against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has a pretty stout rushing defense in the past. I would assume that continues. I know they've lost a couple of pieces, but going up against Tampa Bay is going to be a little bit tough. And then a severe value play would be Rico Dowdle if Zeke is not playing. Dowdle looks like he is doing really well in camp. Zeke's, 114 years old at this point. He got taken out by the tackling machine. At $4,600, Rico Dowdle in an offense that's going to be starved for players to make plays without CeeDee Lamb potentially. Yeah, I know it's a tough Browns defense, but Rico Dowdle, someone's going to have to carry the ball. We're a long way off from week 1. But at $4,600, if Rico Dowdle is the guy, he's going to be on your radar. He's going to be on a lot of people's radar. He might be extremely highly owned if he is RB1 because $4,600 for a starting running back is way too cheap. Now we have to move on to the wide receivers, but we're still in our sleepers. So it's under $5,500, and one of the guys at the top at $5,500 is going to be Christian Kirk. And right below him, Tank Dell. These are 2 insanely good values. Wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville, you lose Zay Jones, you lose Calvin Ridley. The number 1 target owner is going to be Christian Kirk, who, as a wide receiver 2, was capable of giving you some pretty big games. And we saw what he was capable of doing as wide receiver 1 2 years ago. Again, he's going to be thirsty for targets. You're playing against Miami. I expect Miami to put up a lot of points. Jacksonville's going to have to rely on the pass. Trevor Lawrence, Christian Kirk, going to be a fantastic combination. Double-digit targets in multiple games at $5,500. That's severe, severe value. I don't know if I can say enough about Tank Dell. Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, Dalton Schultz, there's a lot of mouths to feed in Houston. But Tank Dell doesn't require a lot of volume to do big damage. Playing out of the slot, he's kind of at an advantage because not a lot of teams have 3 cornerbacks or 3 defensive backs that can match up against 3 really good wide receivers. Can he give you a game with 4 targets or 3 targets? Absolutely. But you can also get a 10 target, a 7 target, an 11, 14, or 10 target game. Now, I know some of those are due because there was injuries to other wide receivers in the room, but he doesn't have to have massive amount of volume in order to pay off at $5,500. Deontay Johnson should be on your radar. That offensive line for the Carolina Panthers absolutely stinks, but Bryce Young has to throw it somewhere. At $5,300, him as well as Adam Thielen is in the exact same range. Deontay Johnson probably going to be wide receiver 1. Jonathan Mingo has struggled. Xavier Legette has been dealing with an injury. Terrace Marshall Jr., wide receiver 4, 5 in that lineup. Also dealing with bad drops all preseason, not spring training, but preseason. Deontay Johnson is going to be wide receiver 1 in a game that they're probably going to be trailing the New Orleans Saints. Lastly, there is a lot of good value in around the $4,100 range. Michael Wilson going up against Buffalo. He is wide receiver 2 again, with Marvin Harrison being the leader. In Denver, we don't know what that wide receiver room is exactly going to look like. Is it Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, or Josh Reynolds? Followed by Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin? We'll have to wait to see how that plays out. Darnell Mooney, there's an injury to Kadril Hodge in the Atlanta Falcons wide receiver room. So wide receiver 2, with so much focus being on Drake London, I don't think Drake London's as good as everyone thinks. But the one I absolutely love would be Jahan Dotson at 4,100 points against Tampa Bay. Again, Tampa Bay has been really good against the run, but they have struggled on the outside against the pass. If Jaden Daniels is as good in the regular season as he has looked in camp, and Cliff Kingsbury can dial up some big plays, I think Jahan Dotson's capable of having a bounce back year. And at $4,100, I'm willing to take that risk so I can go back and get Tyreek Hill. By the way, going against the Arizona Cardinals, you got 3 Buffalo wide receivers right in this range, around $5,000. Yeah, I'll be watching that one closely. You know I'm a baller on a budget, and I love to save money with my tight ends. So essentially, everyone's under $5,500. Evan Ingram, way underrated as a tight end, as a pass-catching tight end. And an offense, again, that loses 2 key weapons, and we're not sure where the volume is going to go. It could be going back to Evan Ingram, who averaged 13 points a game last year in a high passing game where they're probably going to be trailing Dolphins. Yeah, I like Evan Ingram a lot. Kyle Pitts has to be an interesting play for people at $4,600. And then Jake Ferguson at $5,200, especially without CeeDee Lamb. Those targets are going to have to go somewhere. We don't know if CeeDee Lamb's going to be back. I expect him to be back, but things are getting kind of iffy out there. He's going to have a high volume target game, and at $5,200 at the tight end position, I really like that, as many people would. All right, we gotta speed this up a little bit. At the quarterback position, Anthony Richardson has to be worth a look. Again, he played 4 games last year. One of them he left early with a 4-point game, but 30, 17, and 21. That is really, really good in a game where you're probably going to be trailing the Houston Texans. You're going to need that offense to move. The problem is you have a healthy Jonathan Taylor who might get some of those goal line touches that we relied on for Anthony Richardson in those 3 healthy games. But again, at $6,000, getting 15 to 18 points with a rushing upside quarterback isn't that hard to do. I already mentioned how cheap his weapons are. Josh Allen pairing him with one of his wide receivers, talking about our stacks. That's going to be pretty easy to do. $8,000 and then $5,000, $13,000 for a really good stack. That's very easy to do. And going up against Arizona, which isn't a very good defense, especially when it comes to the rushing game last year, I think there's massive upside for Josh Allen. Again, he's capable of having a 35-point game on his own. You can run him naked, but pairing him with his wide receiver is the way to go. And finally, we were talking about it on TikTok. If you don't follow me over there, it's at Allaqcess. Please follow us over on TikTok. We go live every single day to talk about fantasy football matchups and Draftkings matchups. But CJ Stroud was a popular one that people wanted to play. I'm a little weary. Do I think he's a wonderful quarterback? Yes. Do I wish my team had him as a quarterback? Yes. Is 26 touchdowns and 5 interceptions sustainable going into year 2? But there's not a whole lot of rushing upside on a week-to-week basis where you're getting 3, 12, 20, 23, and 7 points at $7,500. Again, I would rather pay up a little bit to get Josh Allen, who's capable of getting a 30, 33, 29, 22, 25-point game. Honorable mention here goes to Trevor Lawrence at $6,200. Again, we just showed you CJ Stroud's numbers. This is in the similar ballpark, right? Like if 25 might be his ceiling, that's still 4 times your value for your quarterback. 25, 20, 16, 12, 18. We know it's going to be going to Christian Kirk or Evan Ingram, so you can pair them together for relatively cheap. But Trevor Lawrence does have rushing upside with about 4 rushing touchdowns last year. I think that, again, that's not rushing upside, but there's the potential that he kind of stumbles and falls into the end zone. High-end running backs that you need to get in your lineup. We've kind of talked about Jonathan Taylor. I think Anthony Richardson could also take away some goal line touches from him. Bijan Robinson against Pittsburgh? Yeah, that's an interesting play to me. At $7,700, I'm willing to take the bite. He's probably going to be the highest owned player because there's so many cheap wide receivers and other running backs that you're able to go get these stars. I think Bijan is going to be extremely heavily owned, but I think he'll be worth the pay. I find it a little weird that Devon Achane at $6,800. Maybe it is really going to be a running back by committee with Mostert and Jalen Wright, who looked really good in week 1 preseason game. But Devon Achane, obviously capable of some really big weeks, some flat weeks as well, but at $6,800 going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who did struggle at times defensively, more so against the pass than the run. I think the Miami Dolphins are playing from ahead. Don't want to risk hurting Tyreek Hill, who just signed a new massive contract. Hand the ball off to one of the younger guys in the backfield. Give me Devon Achane at $6,800, but he's not my favorite play. Here's who is. For $100 cheaper, you can get the running back who led the league in targets per game last year at 6.5 targets a game. Yes, I know, Bradley, wasn't even a 1,000-yard rusher last year. Wasn't even a 700-yard rusher last year. That's okay. I'm more concerned about the targets and the volume that he's getting from check-down champion Derek Carr. If I'm in the range of 16 to 28 points, I'm going to be very happy going up against the Carolina Panthers defense that was 23rd against the rush. They lose Brian Burns. They lose Frankie Louvu. They lose Jeremy Chin. They're losing pieces all over the place. Ejiro Evero is a good defensive coordinator, but one thing he has struggled with over the years is against the run game. You have a pass-catching back in Alvin Kamara that can expose almost any defense at $6,700. I really like Alvin Kamara week 1. And that's coming from a Panthers fan. Honorable mentions here would be Travis Etienne going up against Miami. I do have some concerns of them playing from behind. Aaron Jones going up against the New York Giants. How bad is that quarterback play going to be for Minnesota? Do they just kind of turn around, hand it off, or check down to Aaron Jones? Shad White at $6,300 against Washington. I think you need to pay attention to as we get closer to week 1. Check and see what his rostered value is, how many people are actually rostering him heading into week 1. And the biggest head scratcher of them all to me is Najee Harris. Arthur Smith revenge game, volume run, stuff it down their throats with a revamped offensive line. Najee Harris is my guy week 1 against the Atlanta Falcons at $5,600. Yeah. I'm looking to get me a workhorse, and Najee Harris gives me that at value. We'll fly through these wide receivers because you know who you want to invest in. For me, it's Tyreek Hill. At the top, I don't really need to click that and open it. I think they're going to win against Jacksonville, who loses Rayshon Jenkins. They lose a couple pieces defensively. They don't get off the field defensively, matter of fact. And the Dolphins should be able to put up a lot of points. So give me Tyreek Hill starting week 1. Mike Evans gets paired up against a bad Commanders defense. 31st in the league in points allowed to wide receivers. You look at the passing yards per game, 32nd in passing yards allowed per game. Yes, they have some new coaches down there. That doesn't mean you're going to be revamped in a single season. 14 touchdowns as Baker Mayfield's favorite red zone target. Yeah, I really like Mike Evans week 1. And lastly, Justin Jefferson at $8,400. He's going to be the focal point in that offense. I know that. You know that. We put together something like this. We have Josh Allen running it with Curtis Samuel, or you can still go get Keon Coleman or Khalil Shakir for about the same price. Najee Harris and Alvin Kamara, 2 running backs that I think have massive upside. Tank Dell, boom or bust. Christian Kirk, the number 1 wide receiver for Jacksonville in a play from behind game against Miami. Again, I would like to get Tyreek Hill in here, but with only $5,400, I don't know if that's possible. I could see myself paying down once again at the tight end position or from Curtis Samuel to go save a little bit more money. But even at $5,400, you have options like Jackson Smith and Jigba. You could go get Tyler Lockett, Chuba Hubbard we mentioned, Deontay Johnson, Brian Robinson. There's still plenty of options out there to fill your lineup at $5,400. Okay, be honest, be brutally honest. Put it down in the comments. We're way away from week 1, but so far, what do you think? Is this going to be a lineup that could possibly win me? Again, I play a lot of double up, so I'm just looking to double my money week after week after week. I think we're smarter than half of the population that's playing DraftKings. You do your research. I do my research. We're better than Billy Joe Bob down the street that just plugs and plays Sunday morning. If you like this video at any point in time, give it a thumbs up. I appreciate you watching. We'll be back closer to week 1, and we'll be doing it every single week. Our sleepers, studs, and stacks. Thanks so much.